Hey, thanks for having me. I really appreciate the opportunity to be here. Thank you. How many people are from Stanislaus County? So you know me pretty well. I'm pretty direct, oftentimes to my own detriment. But first of all, I want to applaud you for doing this, for coming together, because educating yourself about what your rights are, educating yourself about the facts, those are all very important things to do, especially in today's society where if you read it on the internet, it must be true. Or if you see something in social media, it must be true. And so many people get confused and they feed off of information that is simply not true. Now, what I want to do in my 20 minutes, and Trent told me he'd drag me off the stage at that moment in time, is I really kind of want to focus on, from my perspective as the sheriff, some of the things that are occurring in Stanislaus County and some of the things that are certainly frustrating for public safety and law enforcement, where we share a similar frustration with big government, government overreach, regulation, and right off the top, I'm being told that I have to provide sanctuary for criminals. That's a hot topic here in California, where all of a sudden the state decides that it's not going to abide by federal law, and the state wants to prohibit law enforcement from actually going out and protecting people from being exploited and victimized. And that's a problem for me. Now, admittedly, I'm one of those sheriffs that doesn't have any public land issues in Stanislaus County. Some of my colleagues here in California do deal with those issues. Sheriff John DiAgostini in El Dorado County has dealt with some of those issues. And the sheriffs have taken a pretty firm stand. We are the local authority, and we're elected by the people to represent everybody in our communities and promote a healthy and safer community, but make sure that people's rights are protected. That's our job. And I truly believe that the way to get the most benefit out of trying to find solutions is relationships. I don't side up very often on particular issues. I'm very interested in everybody's perspective, but when it comes down to it, I guarantee I'll make the decision that's in the best interest of public safety, and that has to do with protecting people's rights. After all, like elected officials, and some of them don't necessarily embrace their oath to preserve and protect and defend the Constitution, the sheriffs do. And the sheriffs are very aware of some of the things that occur that make our jobs more difficult. I got to tell you, I'm not a big government guy, and I hate regulation. And regulation oftentimes handcuffs us, no pun intended, in really trying to move forward a public safety message and a public safety environment, which is so important for all of us in protecting our freedoms and what we do as individuals or even collectively in groups such as this one. Agriculture here in Stanislaus County is huge. Ranching and agriculture, a tradition that has been here for hundreds of years, and I value very much the relationship that I have with agriculture. When John Duarte called me, and John and I have been friends for years, I said, absolutely, I'm more than happy to spend a few minutes with the group and answer any questions they might have about what we're doing here. But that relationship, that support of agriculture and ranching is very important, because that's the lifeblood of our economy here in the Central Valley. It's a multi-billion-dollar industry. We feed the world. And so agricultural deals with the frustration of rural crime. We deal with the frustration of narcotics being an epidemic, and we know that addiction fuels property crime, and addiction certainly fuels rural crime. And we've made a commitment. We've allocated our detectives, our team, our Rural Crimes Task Force team, to partner with the agricultural community and do what we can to prevent product theft, chemical theft, equipment theft, all of the things that go on, and hold people accountable for victimizing the agricultural and ranching community. And it's a difficult task. Unsuccessful if we act alone. Very successful if we partner with all of you in the community, because by sharing information, by working together, by identifying trends and identifying those people who perpetrate these crimes, that helps us in holding people accountable. But then you turn around and you have the state of California and the courts and other special interest groups that are really interested in social justice reform. Well, okay, I'm all for programming and second chances and trying to help people break cycles of addiction and violence, but if you decriminalize the system, if you strip accountability and consequence out of the criminal justice system, which is what California is doing, and you decriminalize things like the possession and distribution of narcotics and some of the other challenges we face, it's only going to perpetuate the problem. Just, I'm sure, and again, I don't really pay much attention to that local newspaper, but you probably saw just recently reported that another good friend of mine had cherry trees ripped out outside of Salida. They're just ripping up his trees. And we're engaged directly in trying to identify a suspect and hold that individual accountable. There's a lot of different types of ag crime that occur, and again, focused in partnership with all of you, the Farm Bureau, many other agencies, because it's not just that farming operation. We have dairy, we have poultry, there's all kinds of industry, and all of those industries are affected by what's happening with our elected officials who are just enamored with regulation and more laws. The state of California, for those of you who live here, the state legislature introduces every year 3,000 new pieces of legislation, 3,000 every year, new laws that we all have to try to live with. And it doesn't make our lives any easier, and it certainly doesn't help us, public safety, in some of the things that we're doing. So I think it's very important to protect the ability for people to gather, because that's what the Constitution says, regardless of where you're at. Certainly there's some prohibitions with regard to private property, but in my world, if it's public property, you have a right to assemble, and I'm going to protect that. And guess what? That applies to any group in the community. So if there are people who decide to come here and join this group and share their opinion or share their ideas, that should be respected. And unfortunately, it's clearly not, because if you're offended or you don't like the message or you don't believe in the message, all of a sudden our ability to simply respect other people's opinion has gone right out the window. And then all of a sudden we want to protest, and we want to use social media, and we want to start sharing our own vitriol, venomous hatred for one group over another. And it's insane, ladies and gentlemen. It's tearing our country apart. Social media, frankly, I think is tearing our country apart as well, because you can post whatever you want, no matter how harmful, hurtful, racist, libelous, doesn't matter. It doesn't even really matter what the facts are or the circumstances or whether or not it's true. Let's just post this nonsense and achieve nothing, because nobody wants to work through the problem to find a solution. In the sheriff's world, we're here to protect people's rights. In the sheriff's world, it is local control. I was elected by the people here in Stanislaus County. I work for them. I work with the Board of Supervisors, or as some refer to, commissioners. I don't work for them. That's how all of this works. And the relationships, as I mentioned, are critically important. And it doesn't matter what the community stakeholder group is. Service, civic, charitable, faith-based business, education, agriculture, all of those stakeholder groups in the community have a relationship with me. And it's important that I listen to their perspective and that I listen to their position, but it's also important that I protect everybody's rights and make sure that those rights that we all enjoy because of the country we live in and our value and belief system and what those who have gone before us have created and died for, those are the things that we have to protect, and that's what the sheriffs are here to do. So that's the high-level quick overview. I'm pretty sure I'm counting down to at least 15 minutes. Are you timing me? Okay. Are there any questions? I wanted to make sure that I just didn't take 20 minutes and tell you my story. Most of you know that I have enjoyed a tremendously successful career here in Stanislaus County. I've been in public safety for 30 years. I've been privileged to serve as the sheriff for the last 12. The people have been overwhelmingly supportive of the sheriff's office, and I'm truly grateful for that. because while I'm just the cheerleader or the CEO, so to speak, the men and women who work for us, all of them, not just the uniforms, every single one of them, support staff, professional staff, they all make it work. And we enjoy the support we do because of the people who work for us and how they treat the community. And I think that's critically important. It's, again, relationships. It's what we do with all of you in agriculture in trying to promote a healthier, safer community, despite all of the challenges that go along with that, and law enforcement across the nation under fire, demonized, villainized, hand-tied in our ability to police our communities simply because people are offended by what we do. I would tell you that those men and women who do wear the uniform, they go out every day, all day, 24 hours a day. They put themselves in harm's way for people they don't even know, for all of us. And they too swore an oath to preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution and to protect the people. And I am here to tell you that after my career, I am still overwhelmingly proud of what they do in our community. Questions? Anybody for the sheriff? Oh, I'm sorry, Trent. Once again.
Tim Smith, Martin County. I was wondering if you had found the guy who stole my hitch the other day from my pickup.
I hope so. I hope so. You know, there was just a case, and it's unfortunate, and again, my belief, driven by addiction and some other things that we're doing, but you probably heard in Elk Grove that the FFA lost a trailer full of equipment and things that are irreplaceable, Disneyland tickets. Did you hear about that? They just stole the trailer. And I remind the agricultural community and the ranchers, everybody living in the rural areas of our community, lock it down, tie it down, nail it down, chain it down, weld it down. Don't leave the keys in your tractor, even though I understand that multiple keys fit multiple tractors. Or you've got to take the extra step. You've got to go the extra mile to be vigilant, look out for each other, and you have to take that step, that extra step, in fortifying or protecting your equipment and your property, but we will do our absolute best to find your stolen trailer hitch. So.
Okay, but first of all, Sheriff, you need to know that his pickup also has negative Hillary stickers, positive Trump stickers, and
so that just made you a target, huh?
he's running in jail, so I don't know what he thought was
Yeah,
going to happen.
there you go.
I do have one question that I'd like to bring some clarity. Being the ultimate authority in the county, let's say the U.S. EPA, or God forbid that the Army Corps of Engineers would ever show up in California, wanted to come and look at my property. They have to get permission from you to do that.
I would hope they do, and I would encourage them to do so. And I do have a good relationship with the Corps of Engineers, and if they're in town and they're on private property and you call us, we're going to come out and ask why they're there and what they're doing, and on what authority do they purport to be on private property.
Because that is protocol.
Yes, we would encourage them to do so, but that doesn't always happen. Now, I will tell you that I have, again, good relationships with federal, state, and local law enforcement partners. There's a lot of people who don't want me to have a relationship with the DEA and the ATF and ICE and everybody else in the Department of Homeland Security, and that just doesn't work for me. And so the only entity I deal with here in this county is the Corps, and I have a good relationship with them. They talk to me all the time. They call me when there are issues. So again, I think that relationship's important, but I also believe that they absolutely have an obligation to get a hold of us if they're in town or if they intend to take any action or they're doing anything. Let me give you another example, which is kind of interesting, and this goes to the debate over firearms, okay? I'm a supporter, obviously, of the Constitution and the Second Amendment. I issue gun permits. I recognize self-protection as good cause. I also recognize that there's a whole lot of folks in agriculture out there that carry guns anyway, because that's just it's part of what you do. And so my deputy sheriffs understand discretion. They understand the spirit of the law versus the letter of the law, and I'm not here to turn law-abiding citizens into criminals over what I call dumbass gun legislation, which, by the way, doesn't keep the guns out of the hands of criminals. We take guns off gangsters every day. But here's the point. There is a belief in the community that if you happen to own a rifle, and that's what it is, it's an Armalite rifle, it's not an assault rifle, it's a rifle. But if you haven't registered it or you happen to have a high-capacity magazine, that the Department of Justice is going to march into Stanislaus County and contact you and arrest you and take your guns without the sheriff's permission. Yeah, no, that's not how it works, because we're not here to take guns from the good guys. We're here to take guns from the bad guys. Now, clearly, I'm probably being recorded, and people are going to see my comments, and there's going to be folks who disagree with me. Okay. But yet I still work for the people, and I'm not going to take guns away from law-abiding citizens. That's just my position. You can like it or not, but I'm also not going to allow the federal law enforcement authorities to come in and seize weapons without going through me first. Pretty simple stuff. Okay, next. Anybody else?
I'm pretty sure nobody's going to ever repeat dumbass gun legislation. I think.
Oh, but you know, there's a lot of dumbass legislation going on, trust me.
Just keep digging, that's good.
Debbie Butch-Luby, cattle rancher from Siskiyou County, Sheriff Luby.
I know John well.
He's awesome.
He's awesome.
We're dealing with, we were told as cattle ranchers back in 2010, that it's not a matter of if, but when they will release. Wolves will come down and supposedly migrate on their own into rural California. These wolves are, some of them, many of them are, have their government necklaces and government ear tags or earrings. I think it's a public safety issue that, first of all, because we know that wolves have killed people, even though they don't want to admit it. They want to hide that from the public. I've seen firsthand what's happened to our cattle when a predator rips the tail off and leaves that animal for a slow, painful death. It's inhumane. I think it's a public safety issue that the sheriff should know where those collared wolves are and also alert the public where those wolves are, what they do.
I agree. I think that's critically important because remember that, admittedly, I'm not an expert on the issue, but from what I've read, and again, I try to educate myself as well. I think that the facts are important, that educating the community is important, public safety, community awareness, public education, all very, very important things to do. I've read about the reintroduction of wolves into Yellowstone and some of the negative consequences that have occurred. And so while I'm certainly a proponent of protecting wildlife, I'm also a proponent of protecting cattle and livestock and some of the other things that all of you do to make a living and to support the freedom that we enjoy in America. And so certainly that's something I would expect and demand is where are these animals at? And if they create a public safety concern, then we should be letting the community know about that too. Anybody else?
I'm pulling you.
I'm out. Ladies and gentlemen, thanks.
Thank you.